long and short is,
We might get it out there by Friday. I'm guessing.
She's coming out in front.
yeah,
Email last night. People in my office.
I'm not
I saw it there.
Gary's in here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're better.
Yeah, I got
And I wish it wasn't as scary anymore.
I'm planning to get here.
He sent me an email format. That's not-
Okay. Maybe it's probably in my
And
other.
there was somebody else.
It's really, it's and it's current statistics, 2019, 2020.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Maybe he just brought the 18.
That could be.
I mean,
I did agree.
it's gone like this. Everybody I've talked to is like, hell yeah.
And I used 2.5 for that, to bring it up. You're probably closer than I am.
Well, I didn't hear.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
me too.
I know of ways to soften it, and I told him the first, probably the second time.
Great,
I
I'm
met
anxious
him,
to see that.
Go hire this company in Colorado, I can't remember their name, they'll do a wind tunnel study for you. And they'll tell you how high you have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't come up on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
It's not in a good
Sources,
format. You get it up on a
above,
computer.
and you use them perfect.
I tried to print it out, and I don't know how to print out things in landscape or whatever, except get it all on one page, so.
Perfect. So, anyway.
All right, everybody, here we go. Sorry, it is 5:30. Start on time. Well, I guess we don't know when we're ending, but we'll try to end on time. Welcome to tonight's work session here, Wednesday, March 24th, 2021 at 5:30 here in the City Council of North Platte Chambers. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers, over there by the door. I want to make it clear that no formal vote or action will be taken at this meeting. I repeat, no formal vote or action will be taken at this meeting. This is largely information between some experts and us non-experts. Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. I want to announce that before we do the roll call that this is an informal discussion, so you don't need to wait for me to give you the floor. Please try not to talk over the top of each other. And please make sure your microphone is on because we are on YouTube. So, which means you do not need to move your microphone. If you need to commiserate with somebody, you're welcome to slide, but you need to get back about here before you're not being heard, okay? So. Now, may we have the roll call, please?
Nestle,
Here.
Tryon. Here. Vols.
Here.
Lucas.
Here.
Garrick. Carmen. Reeker. Woods.
Here.
All along.
Well, I'm not. Give Mark a little attention tonight. He might be lonely on that side of the horseshoe over there. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Appreciate you coming out on a Wednesday night in March. At least it's not snowing, right? Knock on wood. Okay. Well, tonight we have an exciting first presentation by Mr. Mike Works, who is doing the redevelopment of the mall area, as I'm sure you know, and he's talking to us about REV development on establishing an EEA, or Enhanced Employment Area. So Mr. Works is going to talk to us for a while about this, and you're welcome. I'm sure he'll be willing to answer any questions we might have to the best of his ability. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
You have the floor, sir.
Do I need to say my name and where I'm at and all?
Nope, informal. We know
That's-
where you are.
All right, very cool. Slightly less exciting than last night, by the way, but fun to be there too. Okay, so yes, I don't think that any of you have actually seen the site plan yet, other than city office folks. So hopefully you'll get that packet, I would guess, here sometime in the next week or something. Okay, good. So you'll see the site plan in that. I did unveil it last night. I think it was even in the newspaper. Thanks to Todd. So you have an idea of what we're planning to do. Apologize, like.
It's okay.
Over.
I won't take it personally.
So you have an idea of what we're trying to do here. There's a reason why the old owner was not easy to work with. There's also a reason why he couldn't do much with the mall. There is a ton of infrastructure changes that have to be done to the building. We have to reroute all the utilities. The storm sewer is a mess. I mean, so basically we're going to tear off everything. The plan is, if everything goes well and we all agree on what we need to have done, is we'll be just tearing everything up. You're gonna have the bones of the building left, but everything else on that site is gonna be gone other than the Verizon building. So it's a ton of infrastructure and work that needs to be done, and we're talking about, millions and millions of dollars that have to be put into this. And so we're here really asking the city to help us out to do that, to get it to where we want it to be. We're lucky that we're somewhat local. We've got a lot of stuff that we do out here. We've got family in McCook and Arapahoe and places like that. My partner Justin has family in Ogallala, and we've all got friends here in North Platte as well. So, we're glad to be here, and this isn't going to be our only development here either. We're also looking at a hotel and some other stuff out by the interstate. So, we plan to be in North Platte for a long time. So, all that out of the way. Reason I'm really here tonight is one of the things we're asking for is an enhanced employment area, which is EEA. I don't think you've done one in North Platte. It's been around since 2007. Did not get used very much at all for the first 5 or 6 years. In fact, I think the only thing that it got used on was the outlet malls between Lincoln and Omaha in those first 5 years. And so that's something they did there. At its base, it's very simple. You take an area of a town or a development or whatever. In this case, we want to do the entire 28 acres of the mall area, and you institute a tax, which is basically an extra sales tax, occupation tax, that is applied to everybody that buys something at that mall. So if anything gets sales taxed, there are some exceptions. For instance, if we do get the grocery store that we're hoping to, groceries don't get taxed. So that wouldn't be included in this. But anything that's a normal restaurant, sporting goods store, movie theater, anything like that would get this additional tax on it. So at its core, very simple. We institute this. You can do it with or without the approval of the folks in the area. Now, I will tell you that we are talking to every single one of our tenants, and every one of our tenants so far has been 2 thumbs up, because they get that all the stuff that we want to do to make their life better doesn't happen without this. And so we will, when I really come forward and formally present this to everybody, which I think is April 6th, I will have a letter that is signed by at least the tenants that are there now and that we know are coming, saying, yes, we're in support of this. So I want to make sure that everybody knows we're not trying to force this down on anybody. So we're going to be asking for a 1.95% tax to be added to all of these bills to help pay for things. What that equals out over a 20-year period, which is statutorily, this is a 20-year deal, EEA is someplace, when you see it on our formal presentation, it will say $7 million roughly, give or take. Now, that's assuming that every single thing gets up and running and is fully, no vacancy right away, and it's the people we think that are going to be there, et cetera. In reality, this is going to bring in someplace between probably $4 million and $7 million over a 20-year period. And so that's what we're asking for, and obviously we'll ask for the top number in case we get there. But basically what happens is the taxes are paid, they're collected at the tenant retail level on a monthly, I think it's monthly basis. They send those taxes into the city, and then the city will turn around and pay those to my lender, who will be financing all of the improvements of the project. You said expert. I'm not sure I'm really a big expert on this, but we have done it before. We actually were approved for a 2%, almost same amount in Lincoln, Nebraska, on a basically $50 million project we were going to do at 9th and O. It was going to be a hotel, and it was going to be condos on top and some retail. Turns out we didn't do the condos, and so now it's just a hotel, and it's going up right now. If you've been to downtown Lincoln, we're still building the hotel, but because we didn't have the condos and things, we didn't need the EEA. So we're no longer doing the EEA there, but we did get approved. We've also been approved in Omaha at a hotel development. It's an old, much like this, redevelopment project on the Logan building at 18th and Dodge. Roughly $23 million project, and it needed a whole lot of help too, and that's why we had to get it there. So that's a 3% EEA that we're getting there. Norfolk approved one for the mall there not long ago. There's been actually 5 different ones in Omaha that have been approved. Shields in Lincoln did that one. If you've been to Shields in South Lincoln with the huge parking garage, that's how they paid for the parking garage. Everybody at the mall is paying for that. So this is not new, and I think it's something that more and more people are going to use, because it doesn't take anything out of the pockets of the city, right? You're not even foregoing anything like you kind of are with TIF, because you're not getting that tax, I suppose. But on this, it's something that's being generated by the people that want to shop there. So I suppose the one argument would be, well, some of the money that's going to come in from this is citizens in the town of North Platte. They're going to pay a little bit higher tax. that would absolutely be true. No way to argue around that, but the fact is that you don't have to shop there if you don't want to. And I think it's been proven long enough now, because we're not the only state that does this. There's lots of states that do something similar to this. They don't call it EEA, but there's lots. And what people are finding is there is a certain level you can get to on a tax where people will change their shopping. But in reality, people don't change their shopping ideas and where they shop based on a couple of percent. That just isn't going to change things. And if you are giving them what we will be doing, a better shopping experience and a mixed-use development and the other things that go with that, if our tenants and retailers aren't worried about it, then we're certainly not worried about it changing anybody's shopping habits. And we fully expect this to be an amazing development where people want to shop and be and hang out and live and everything else. So that's kind of all I got to say, to be honest. But I wanted to have this opportunity because nobody's ever done it here before. And so you had an idea of what we're really talking about before we show up on March 6th or April 6th and tell you about it for the first time.
One of the questions that I've been asked a couple times is, in these EEA experience that you have, does the city take a small percentage for processing or anything like that? Or is it a straight payment from the taxed entities to the lender?
We, I think, paid a fee up front,
Okay.
at least in the Omaha one. It wasn't a big fee.
Yeah.
It was just an administrative fee. But I don't think they're taking anything long-term, no.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious. I'm not suggesting necessarily that we should. I was just curious if that was common practice in this.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
some other states do. In my research, I figured out that they do, but I don't
Correct.
think it's anything that amounts to a significant percentage, so.
And you're right, and we're doing something very similar. It's called a CID in Kansas, but we're doing one in Kansas, and they are taking it like 2.5% off the top each year, I think,
Oh.
or something like that in Kansas. That's on a hotel project.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah,
So,
yes.
if I were to shop in that retail store, I would be paying 8.95%, is that right? Is that what it is, or
You
are
guys
we
are
up
gonna have
to
to help me
9?
with what your base is. Okay, that is
Well,
correct.
oh, our
Okay.
base is 7 here.
So yes,
City
you would
and
be paying
states.
8.95%. That is correct.
Thank you.
And at the end of the 20-year period,
It just goes away.
it goes away?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, right. Hopefully, we still have concrete
yes.
parking lots and things like that that still look good, and we're in good shape.
So let's say that you get a really exciting store with something that's very popular there, and you reach your 7 million dollars at year 15. Does it stop, or does it continue?
Just like TIF, it would stop.
It would stop.
That is
So
correct.
once the loan is repaid, it's done. In
Once you
essence.
hit that total mark that you've granted in the redevelopment agreement,
Okay,
it's done, right?
okay.
Because we won't be able to borrow as much as
Right.
that number is, because no bank's going to agree that you're absolutely going to get that much money.
Okay, I got it, yeah.
Yes.
Mike, as I've looked across the projects of the state that have done this, I'm thinking about like the Eunice Conference Center in Kearney or the whole mall redevelopment in Grand Island, like around where Dick's is at. I know those were areas that use this. I think in some of the ones in Lincoln, and maybe downtown Hastings too, I'm trying to remember for sure, but it seems like a lot of these areas, people are paying a higher tax, but they're getting something. They're getting outdoor areas, they're getting parking, they're getting places they can walk their dog or take their kids. So I think a lot of the theory on this tool is that people are getting something out of it other than just the ability to go into that store and buy something. Would you comment maybe about your view on that or how that ties to the things you guys are looking at with the project?
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, and I'd kind of forgotten to talk about that. So, several things that we're hopefully doing that are a benefit to the whole community besides just new parking lot, improved shopping areas. One of those is we are doing, obviously living, on this property, the top 3 levels of our mixed-use building will be apartments. But there are common areas as well in between some of the restaurants in front of that. So we've got some green space, some common areas for people to hang out. That's number one. Number two, and the bigger one really, is the conference center. We know that the city couldn't afford to go build their own conference center like York or something, that those numbers just don't make sense. We are lucky enough to have a big building. It's not something we plan to make any money on because no conference center makes money. In fact, most lose money. But we are using a portion of the EEA to pay the rent on 18,000 square feet in the middle of our building. That will be available to the public, be available to the city, be available to whoever, for weddings, the car show, anything and everything that would happen in the city. So that's something that the city does not have now that we have proposed, and are planning to follow through on as we redevelop and renovate the, right in the center, but what we're calling the north half of the building. So right now, the entrance to that would be on the east side of the building. It would be, the conference center itself would be mostly the JCPenney's area, if everybody remembers the JCPenney's. Yeah, and you'd have breakout rooms, you could do 2 large events at the same time, you could easily have a wedding of 600 people. It'll have not a full kitchen, but a prep kitchen. So if anybody in here really is into restaurants, we'll be looking for a caterer. And so that's one of the other big benefits of what's going on here. Yeah, good question, thank you.
So do you have your whole finance package prepared? TIF, quality growth, I mean, where are we at with?
Yes, that has all been presented and given to the city, so that's the
Oh, so
packet
we'll
you
be
should be
getting-
getting, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be
And I'd be
patient.
happy to talk about all of it if you want to. I mean, you're pretty the tip, if you don't mind, is it okay?
Yeah,
We take a few.
let's stick to EEA tonight.
We'll stick to
since
EEA.
that's what's on the
Totally good.
agenda, and We'll give you plenty of time on April 6th.
I know, I can talk about this forever, yes. Okay,
We can wait, I guess.
yeah.
It's just that's what we put on our public agenda. We did not say that we're talking about those other things, so we need
Oh,
to stick
okay.
to our
Fair
public
enough.
agenda, because that's the way this
Makes
works.
sense.
So,
Okay,
You're
good.
right,
Otherwise-
it's not, you're right.
we would be enthralled, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, maybe more interesting than finance, but,
Now Dawn worked hard on her presentation.
cool.
Okay, Mike, I have to ask in a public forum, because I get asked this question. So I know that, we've talked briefly about you guys are gonna reopen the movie theater, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Do we have any sense of when that might happen?
I would be surprised if that by midsummer, we do not have an open movie theater.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the lease is not signed, but we've been going back and forth on that for some time.
Okay, I know that's something that many people in the community are excited about having, so I think there'll be lines probably.
Good.
Are you still gonna have 6 theaters?
Oh, can I just say that first of all, we're paying for it all, but let's make sure but they're all gonna be recliner seats. We did insist on that, so they're all gonna be recliner seats.
Really?
There's going to be food, there's going to be alcohol, if it all comes together like it's supposed to, it should be really fun. It should be a cool experience.
I am excited about recliners, except I'll never see the end of a movie. My wife will wake me up. But it's all right.
Unless we listen to Dawn's finance presentation first.
Right. Cool.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Works?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
For
being here,
coming.
we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, we'll see you on 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Sounds good. Thanks. Okay. No, no, no.
He doesn't want to know this
Okay,
part.
I promised Dawn an exciting introduction. I didn't have time to come up with a drum roll sound, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. But we have an exciting presentation now from Don Miller, our finance head, and we're all gonna learn some things about finance that probably everybody except Hyde maybe doesn't know. So, okay, let's go on. You guys aren't coming with my humor very well tonight. I mean, it's an informal meeting. Come on, we can joke around a little later.
I did tell Don I was excited for the presentation ahead of time.
That's good.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, and I know you worked hard on this.
Thank you, Dawn.
All yours, Don, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelleher, members of the city council, Mr. Kibben, Mr. Waite. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to try to provide a little more information to all of you on the topic of finance for the city of North Platte. I am extremely passionate about numbers and details when it comes to the city's finances, but I certainly respect that not everyone gets quite as excited about accounting and finance and budgets. So I thought I'd better provide a brief disclaimer relative to the humor contained in this presentation by sharing a short video clip with you. That's all right.
Accounting humor.
With that, I certainly promise to spare you of any further jokes. It does not seem to be a strong point for me, and I think several other of us in this profession. I do hope that you all gain, though, a slightly better understanding tonight. I am going to try to quickly touch on some terminology. Certainly provide me feedback if it's more, but I feel like it'll be a baseline for us as we proceed with reviewing audits, budgets, and so forth. Many of you are very familiar with the finances of your own budget, of your own business, or your employer's business. One key difference between the accounting for a private business and that of the City of North Platte and other state and local governments is our use of fund accounting. So a fund in this case is actually a set of accounts that are used to maintain control over resources that have been segregated for certain activities or objectives. The use of fund accounting helps ensure and demonstrate compliance with finance-related legal requirements. The city's funds can actually be divided into 3 different categories. The first is governmental funds. The city's general fund is one of the governmental funds. We also use governmental funds to account for the debt service fund, assessments funds, our special revenue funds, and the golf fund. They're all considered governmental funds. The second fund category is proprietary funds. And these funds are used to account for the city's electric, water, and sewer funds. So basically our municipal light and water functions. Functions of the enterprise funds are also sometimes referred to as business type activities. And then the second type of proprietary fund is it's called an internal service fund. And this would be the fund that we use to account for the city's health and accident insurance monies. This is used, it allows us to accumulate costs and then distribute among the various departments. And so that would be the function in this case of the internal service fund. The third category is that of fiduciary funds. And these funds are used to account for resources that we hold for the benefit of parties outside the city. So the city's police and fire pension fund accounts for direct pension payments to police and fire personnel who were employed prior to 1984 under a defined benefits plan. Agency funds are the second type of fiduciary funds, and agency funds are used to account for assets that are held on a purely custodial basis. So our school fund and the hotel tax fund for the city of North Platte would be considered fiduciary funds. One other item that I would like to mention with regard to the city's overall accounting processes is the basis of accounting that we use. For our internal fund financial statements, we use the cash basis of accounting. And those we use for our governmental and fiduciary funds. Internally, we use an accrual basis of accounting for our utility or our proprietary funds. For the audit that we will be receiving in the near future, you will notice that the government-wide financial statements in that are presented for our governmental and fiduciary funds on the modified cash basis of accounting, which is essentially the cash basis of accounting except for the fact that they do include liabilities are recognized for bond payments on the governmental funds, and capital assets are recorded and depreciation. but other accrual type entries are not done for the city's governmental and fiduciary funds. The proprietary funds, again, are completely accounted for on an accrual basis.
Hey, Dawn?
Yes.
What kind of funds fall into proprietary?
Proprietary would be our utility funds, so electric, water, and sewer. And so essentially our municipal light and water, it's all accounting, and it's all accrual accounting. And we account for it via the accrual method internally as well as within all audited financials.
Okay, thanks.
Real briefly, the difference between accrual and modified cash basis?
Yes, yes. The difference there is typically with the modified cash basis, it is cash basis except for liabilities are recognized for bond payments and capital assets are recognized as well as depreciation. So those two types of entries are typically not made in a pure cash basis system. In an accrual basis accounting system, revenues are recognized when the funds are earned, and then your expenditures are recognized when the liability is incurred or the asset is used. So those would be the differences between accrual and cash basis.
So Dawn, so when it's earned, that doesn't mean you've received it.
That's-
It's just that you've earned it
That's correct.
to be coming in. And then the expense, it's when it's incurred, but not when it's paid.
Not necessarily when it's paid. That's
Right.
exactly right. The best example for earned revenues would be our utilities accounts receivable. So we recognize revenue as soon as the bills get posted in our system, despite the fact that cash doesn't come in at that moment. If that were a city or a governmental fund, we would not recognize that revenue until we actually received the cash. One of the largest tasks that the city completes is our annual budget. City administration and department heads all take this process extremely seriously and work very hard to prepare the budget each year. Mr. Kibben, Mr. Grosseth, and I have been meeting about weekly since February 4th for preliminary budget planning purposes. And formal or more formal budget preparations by department heads will actually begin mid-June. However, I know some of them are already working internally or at least thinking about their budget. But we do start the budget process with 8 months actual numbers, which would be May's financial data, and that's what kickstarts our budget process. So that's where the mid-June comes into play on that. This slide just shows some other key dates relative to our budget process for your reference. The probably most key date with respect to the budget would be the September 20th date, where the adopted budget is actually due to be filed with the county and the state. Okay. I previously mentioned that we do have a lot of detail when it comes to finances, and I want to share just a piece of that with you on the next slide, which is actually an excerpt from the city's current year's budget. While compiling our budget this past summer, Mr. Kibben suggested that we slightly modify our budget format so as to improve its readability. We did make those changes with the understanding that we would continue to modify the formatting and presentation of the city's budget in future years in an effort to further try to improve its ease of use and understanding by all of you and all of our citizens. This would be the budget page that is in your packet. This is the Administration and Finance page. And to the left, the department of the particular city department is referenced at the top left-hand corner of the page. And the number below that is what we call the org, which actually identifies the department in our accounting system. And then the various columns, we begin by providing the actual numbers from the prior fiscal year, and those are actually the final audited numbers. We also provide a reference to that year's budget. So in this case, it would be the 2019 budget column. The third column of numbers is the May 31st, 2020, in this case, year-to-date budget, which would be the 8-month numbers that I referred to earlier that we use to begin our budget process. The 2020 budget is provided, so that would give us a comparable as to the current year at the time of us doing the budget for reference purposes. And then the department heads provide us with an estimate that they expect to end that current fiscal year, which in this case is 2020. And that's what the fifth column is on this page, followed by the 2021 budget, which would be the budget that is included in the particular packet that we have. And again, this one is from our 2020-21 budget packet. And then the final column on the right-hand side takes the 2021 budget and compares it to the 2020 budget. So it takes the budget that is being proposed and compares it to the prior year's budget. And that's what those percentages reflect.
Just real quickly, Dawn, what is our fiscal year?
Our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th.
So on the 2019 actual, that is October 1st of 2018 through September of 2019.
That's
right?
correct. Yes. Although we all work very hard to prepare the best budget that we can for the city, it seems that there have always been some challenges to consider. Following Mr. Kibben's arrival at the city this past May, we recall at least twice, I believe, that we visited relative to having enough general funds available to cover general fund bills. Historically, we have annually struggled with general fund cash flow at certain times of the year. And as a result, we requested with last year's budget process that department heads try to make a 10% reduction in their first round 2020-2021 budgets with as minimal impact to service as possible. Although this was a very lofty request, all department heads rose to the challenge, as they always do. And everyone's diligent efforts actually resulted in a final general fund budget that was about $830,000, or 2.56% less than the prior year's budget. Another important consideration as we prepare the city's budget is the need to create a cash reserve in the city's general fund. Some of you may recall hearing the auditor recommend creating a general fund cash reserve during prior audit presentations. Based on the actions that were taken in our 2020-21 budget process, We believe this will allow us to begin to create a general fund cash reserve. Historically, the city's budget has been based on the fact that we annually we budget to spend all available cash. And we will be working together to transition to a budget that more closely reflects actual spending, and then the balance being reflected as a cash reserve citywide. The third item on the slide is relative to the importance of the timing of our revenues and expenditures. As you review city revenues, you will see that some of them are very seasonal or do not come in every month throughout the year. A good example is property taxes. As the city receives the majority of our property taxes in the last third of our fiscal year. In 1920, we received a total of 64% of our annual budget in the months of May and September, so our 8th and our 12th month of the fiscal year. Since cash flow has historically been very critical and important, we must be very careful with the timing of expenditures until a sufficient amount of revenue is received during the year. The establishment of a general fund cash reserve would also help reduce some of these timing constraints. This slide graphically displays the portion that salaries and benefits are in relation to the total general fund budget. So of the nearly 31.6 million general fund budget for our current fiscal year, personnel costs are budgeted to be 20.2 million, or 64% of the total. Since employees are the city's greatest asset, it is very difficult to consider extreme budget reductions without negatively impacting the services that our people provide. A final item to point out is that the city is subject to comparability requirements as required by law, which means that we must provide salaries and benefits that are comparable to those of similarly sized communities throughout the state, and possibly even overlapping, just depending upon what our comparable cities are.
Don, may I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
Do you know off the cuff, and I think I kind of remember where this is at, but if you break down salary and benefits of the 20.2 million, what's approximately the background? It's not far off half and half, is it?
Right. Salaries are about 70%.
Okay.
And then the benefits would be 30%.
Okay,
And
about
this is
70-30.
this was based on our budget. So that would be based on the $20,218,719 there. Salaries were 69.8% of that.
One thing that I know I've brought up from time to time, I just want to share this comment with the council while we're talking about this, is that one of the concerns I've had is in tight budget years, the city's been limited on abilities to do what most private businesses or even close are able to do in normal cost of living wage adjustments. I know if you go back and you look historically, our cost of living wage adjustments have been pretty low in the last several years because of tight budgets. So I don't have any aspirations to take away any compensation from our employees because I think they're not overcompensated. But I do have a motivation if we can drive down our costs of health insurance and other benefit costs without taking things away in the overall compensation package, so the city can be in a pattern. Because I think if one thing that glares out in our budget to me is if you look at other municipal budgets or private business or whatnot, that we are heavy benefit expense as a percentage. And then when health insurance by nature goes up 4 or 6 or 8 or 12% a year, it starts to hamstring us on our ability to do what I think are good cost of living adjustments. And so that's just something I watch a lot, is that ratio of those, of benefits versus salary. Again, I don't want anybody to take that the wrong way. This isn't about taking away compensation or benefits from employees. It's about how can we drive cost that goes out to the outside world of benefits to have that available for proper wage adjustments.
Comment on that subject?
My only comment was, in the last 10 months of being here, health insurance has been a focus of mine, primarily based on Ty's commentary during the budget season last year and tonight and a couple other times in between. And so I will say that is a focus of ours. We are working with our consultant as we speak to figure out ways to reduce our insurance costs and hopefully free up more monies for compensation. So it's definitely something we're striving to accomplish during this year.
Yeah, and I'm very appreciative of the attention that everybody at the city's paying to that. I brought it up tonight because I think it's a good topic for council members to think about. What are we providing the employees as a city to be the best at retaining employees and hiring future employees and all that? So that's the angle that I think the council should be consistently thinking about, so we can help set that strategic direction on an annual basis. I tell you, when we vote on a budget that has a no cost of living increase for employees, I'm bothered by that.
I guess I would just like to throw out too, I think healthcare costs can be, how do I say this, a little bit controlled if the employees have some responsibility for the cost, rather than, and I don't know about these plans here at the city at all, but in various places where I've worked, if you have an insurance plan that pays for anything and everything, you're going to use it. So I always felt like if the employees had some responsibility for the cost, it kind of helps control it a little bit. Am I making sense?
You are making sense, and all of our employees, including me, we do obviously contribute to the plan. And then the other thing we're looking at is, what can we do from a wellness perspective?
Yes.
Encourage city employees to take care of their health. Take care of your health is going to reduce your costs, so on and so forth. So again, that's what a lot of my time over the next year, hopefully, will be spent on.
Or even, I know I used a health savings account, and I loved it. So I don't know if that's an option yet, but if you're checking it out, I know you'll do the right thing.
One of the reasons that wellness is, and this is not my healthcare expertise, but I can add just a bit of insight. And one of the reasons that wellness is such an important thing, and I'm glad that Matt and team are looking at it, is because that's truly a preventative measure. Because many people there are some people that have conditions that just require that they have regular health care. That's just the way it is. But people that are focused on being more well will just generally use less health care. So anything that we can do to facilitate that ends up in a savings.
I know these guys are working hard on this, but I know in our business at the bank, health insurance management, it's like a 10 category plan of attack. It's wellness, and it's driving down the medical costs of the actual medical provider. It's driving down the insurance cost, the insurance servicing cost, the care coordination things that APTA presented. I think from what I've seen out there, they are ahead of the normal game on trying to help people with pre-certifications and cost management. And then he also mentioned in that presentation that having a 2 or 3 tier plan, because you might have some employees that want an HSA and others that are heavier users and need that. And so it truly is like a 10 category prong of attack, and I know these guys are focused on it. I think all those categories are important to drive that cost down. But I know you guys are working on every one of them. I mean, yeah.
As we begin our budget discussions with you all over the coming months, I just wanted to mention a couple of items with respect to budget compliance. The first item under which municipalities in the state of Nebraska must comply is the restricted funds lid. The biggest misconception about the restricted funds lid is that it is a lid on disbursements. There is no lid on disbursements. The lid is on the amount of certain revenues called restricted funds that the city can receive. On the next slide, I will show you the restricted funds, and so we can go through those. But the second item with respect to compliance is the levy limit. And the levy limit applicable to municipalities is 45 cents plus 5 cents for interlocal agreements. And the portion of the levy that we have in the city that is for bond payments is not subject to the levy limit. However, the airport's levy, their non-bond portion, must be added to the city's levy for compliance purposes. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, the list on the right here identifies the restricted funds that the city is limited to. And you will notice the two at the top, which are two of our large revenues being sales tax and property tax. So with the restricted funds lid, there are two main options that actually allow us to increase the city's restricted funds authority. So one of those options is a 2.5% automatic annual base limitation increase. So this is an automatic increase over last year's restricted funds authority. It happens automatically with our budget process. The second, and again, these are the two, I'm going to say, main increases, would be a 1% increase with the approval of 75% of our governing body. So 75% of council approves, we would be eligible for another 1% increase. And once again, it is important to note that increasing the city's restricted funds authority does not automatically mean increased spending, but it gives the city more flexibility to actually use the revenues that we are able to generate. So as we look and think about some of the economic development projects that may be coming forward and the potential revenue impacts that may result to the city, we believe it is important to consider the additional 1% that is allowed by council approval. We will be asking the city's auditors to provide all of us a more in-depth review on this option for administration and city council consideration in an upcoming presentation on the city's audit. Yes.
Could you refresh and please explain again the 2.5% base limitation increase? So is that 2%, 2.5% of the 1.5 or the 7%?
It's 2.5% of the restricted funds authority from the prior year.
Okay.
So it's about a 2 or 3 page calculation that's done as part of the city's budget process for the documents that we send to the state.
Okay.
And so since we have not previously used the 1% option, I am seeking our auditor's explanation just to make sure that there's something out there that, we don't want to miss something, but we believe that this may be an option that we want to consider given some unknowns that will be happening in the future. I believe, there are other cities throughout the state that this is just part of their routine whereby they do propose this and have council, and their councils do typically approve it, just to give them that authority should opportunities come to them. It would put them in a position to be able to use the revenues.
And then to follow up on that, so would the EEA be classified as a sales tax, which would be a 1.9, which would be greater than the 1%? Or would that fall into another calculation, or is that not a restricted fund?
It's an occupation.
You're right, I believe
So it'd be an
it-
occupation, not a sales tax?
That's
Different
my-
terminology.
That's my that would be my understanding. I have not studied that, but our occupation taxes are not considered restricted funds, and my understanding is that the EEA would be an occupation tax.
It can't be a sales tax because we're limited to how much we can raise sales tax. We can adjust sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something back to you? I want to make sure I understand that. So in our total budget, you run this complex calculation and the 2.5 limit on the things that apply. The 1% allows that to go from 2.5 to 3.5?
That's correct.
And so what you're saying is if your revenues go up, you're restricted on your ability to spend it to invest in things, right?
That's correct.
Because of the lid on the
That's
spending?
correct.
Okay.
That's right.
I'm with you.
The key piece of this is it's a lid on revenues, not on expenditures. And we know that they do go hand in hand to a point. But if we have opportunities come to us, we want to be in a position to be able to utilize, because we will likely have needs as well.
So it's an expenditure-based lid then, right? Or is there?
It's a revenue-based.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a revenue-based.
It's a
okay.
revenue-based lid.
Okay.
Could you just give us a practical example, and maybe that's what Lane is gonna do, because he's gesturing back there.
I'll just interject while Lane's walking up. I mean, put simply, in my mind, this is, the 1% doesn't hamstring us. We're just taking the 2.5% every year. That happens automatically through the 1%, frees up our ability on the revenue side to have more spending authority, if I'm understanding it correctly. High level.
As a practical example, let's say with the mall redevelopment, and if we have some people moving in from jobs and stuff, and our sales tax would increase quite significantly, we would be hamstrung. If it went up, let's say 40%, we'd be hamstrung because of the lids not to be able to spend that. And if these allowable increases, it doesn't mean your budget goes up that much every year, but it gives you that ability. And so those actually compound over time. So if you don't use that 1% extra for 4 or 5 years, that still continues to add to the budget authority. So if we did all of a sudden have, a huge increase in sales tax or some other things, our highway allocation is set by the state, and that's basically based on your gas tax. And so we see that fluctuate quite a bit every year, where it usually goes up a couple $100,000 a year, and that's based on the gas tax from the state and the amount of people traveling through. If we don't have this authority, I guess we did see some big significant changes in North Platte. We needed more police officers or different things like that. We could be hampered as far as not being able to spend that money that's coming in. And so it doesn't mean we're going to spend it. It just gives you that ability in the future if something would change to have that authority. But it doesn't, it still is completely controlled by this body as far as the actual budget of how much is going to be spent on that.
So then I have a question. So if, does it have to be voted on at the time that the budget is approved, or can it be voted on, this 1%, can it be voted on as it's needed or when it's needed?
It would be part of the budget approval
budget
process.
okay.
Yes.
So at that time, we would have to decide if we want to use that or not.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yes.
Just to phrase that correctly, Donna, I just want to make sure I heard you. I think what we're saying is if we approved that 1% in the budget process, then we would have the opportunity to exercise it going forward if we chose to,
use it, right? Or not use it
or not use it.
if it's needed, right?
This slide is just providing a breakdown of the city's current levy. The general levy is just under 27.9 cents and results in budgeted revenue of about 4.47 million for 2021. The debt service levy of the city's total levy is 14.4 cents per $100 of valuation, and that results in 2.31 million in budgeted revenue for debt service in 2021. The police and fire pension levy is about 1.96 cents and results in almost 314,000 budgeted revenue. And again, our total city levy is 44.2694 cents and results in tax revenues from property taxes of just under 7.1 million for the city's 2021 budget. And then the next chart here is relative to the levy compliance items that we discussed earlier. And this one actually has to do again with the levy limit. As I mentioned, the levy limit applicable to municipalities is 45 cents plus 5 cents for interlocal agreements. Since the city has not historically taken the additional 5 cents for interlocals, this slide is presented to you in the more conservative manner, reflecting a levy limit of only 45 cents. So the gold component there would be the room that we have with respect to our levy, where it's currently at, based on the limit. And again, the red portion reflects the city's non-bond levy total plus the airport's non-bond levy portion. In some of the presentations relative to the city's 1- and 6-year plan, Mr. Birkeland and Mr. Kibben have referenced the city's bond payment schedule as one of the factors considered in planning relative to the timing of projects, specifically the 9th Street project. This graph displays the city's annual debt service, principal, and interest payments based on a total of $21,149,000 that is currently outstanding bond interest and principal. Again, this is for the bond retirement fund, which would be on the governmental fund side. You will notice that in 2024, there is a reduction of approximately $250,000. This is due to the debt service payment for our 2013 various purpose refunding issue being approximately half of what it was in previous years. And the reason for that is there's just a partial payment, that's the final year. And so if you step out to 2025, you see another dip, and that is reflective of the 2013 issue being fully paid off, the last payment being made in 2024. And, okay.
So,
Yeah, no, you're fine.
so in 2021, it was like 500,000 thereabouts, and then it jumped clear up to 1.9 million.
So,
Was there a big?
no, that's a very good question. The 2021 is reflective of our current outstanding principal. So we've already made a large portion of our general obligation payments earlier. those get paid in December. So the 500,000 is the amount that is currently outstanding based on, just this month. So that would be the reason. The total debt that we've paid for our fiscal year was levelized at the top there.
Okay.
So this is reflective of current.
So sometime before the end of the year, we'll make the other 500,000.
We do. We'll make the last half of all of our payments in June.
Municipal bonds by nature are December and June principal payments typically. And Don and I were talking the other night after the meeting that municipal bond rates have been the lowest they've ever been for probably the last few months, and we're just starting to see uptick now. And I know at the bank there, we're probably getting 2 or 3 bond offerings a day of municipalities right now that are in refinancing mode. So everybody's refinancing everything they can at this point. So it's an interesting time. It usually seems like when rates come off the bottom and they're starting to go up, that's where you see the heavy bond refinancing.
And you are actually going to be, we intend to have an item at the April 6th council meeting with respect to an issue to redeem the city's outstanding warrants, and then another public safety issue that we've been working on. So
I think your
very
timing's
timely
probably
point.
wise.
Additionally, we're working on, we put out an RFP for a bonding advisor. These we're pulling off of that because we're recognizing what the bond rates are doing. We'll get that company selected for the refunding of our current bonds as well in the near term. So you'll see a lot of bonding conversation happen over the next few months as well.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause I'm losing money.
And then this slide is the same information. It's the outstanding bond principal and interest for the city's utility funds. So here you can see we actually zero out in about 2029 on the utility side. The current outstanding total principal and interest for utilities is about 13.25 million. And that is broken down between our electric fund has just over 320,000 remaining outstanding. Our water fund is about 2.65 million. And then the remainder outstanding for the utilities is in our sewer fund at about 10.28 million. So the majority of our utility fund outstanding principal and interest is in our sewer fund. But overall, a very positive picture with respect to the utilities.
And just for clarification, the sewer fund is largely the wastewater treatment plant?
That is correct, yes. Well, thank you so much for your patience and for your time this evening with this information. And once again, I apologize for the lack of any great humor tonight, but I do hope that you have gained at least some additional insight with respect to the city's finances. And I am excited to continue to work with all of you, our excellent department heads and great team of finance employees, as we do have a constant eye towards improvement with respect to all of the finance functions for the city of North Platte. Does anyone have any other questions?
Just got one, Don.
Yes.
So I understand, what taxes do we actually collect versus what taxes come from, like the state collects or the county collects? What are the ones that the city actually has to go collect from the payer?
We receive this sales tax directly from the state. We receive property taxes from the counties via monthly checks that I pick up from the courthouse. The occupation taxes are paid directly to the city. Goodness, as far as other taxes, I'm trying to think, am I missing any that anyone thinks of? But really, it would be our sales tax from the county, property taxes collected, sales tax from the state, excuse me. Property taxes are collected by the county and remitted on a monthly basis to the city. Occupation taxes come in directly.
And like fuel tax probably comes from the state.
Fuel tax comes in via the state, and the highway fundings come in electronically from the state.
And like
Yes.
sales tax on a vehicle, that goes to the state and then comes back out.
That's correct, yes. That's part of the monthly receipts that we receive from the state.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Just one comment, for those potentially listening from home too. Dawn is extremely knowledgeable in the city finance world, and is a great resource, and I'm extremely happy to have her part of the team. Her door is always open too. Dawn is always willing to help and is always willing to explain more about the city finances. So if there's ever a question, feel free to call Dawn or swing by the city offices and grab her. She's, like I said, always there to help.
Yes.
And she's always at the meetings.
Yes, she is.
Thank you, Don, that was excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It would appear that we have reached the end of our agenda. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for
Short
being here.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is,
Okay. They just put it in the mailboxes, so
Thank
I
you.
passed them out. So you could read it before the